Hi everyone, welcome back to Pages and Projects with Liz. November was another really good reading month. I went through 13 books. Been trying really hard to get through all of the books that I wanted to read by the end of the year. So I've been focusing and trying not to put things out. So this month is another mix of books from different places in my TBR. Some of them are books that I said that I wanted to read by the end of the year. Others are books that I've just been interested in a while. And then some books that I decided to read this month that I didn't even have. So I do have a couple that I had checked out from the library and was able to read on my Kindle. So let's get started with the reviews. So the first book was Death in the Spires by KJ Charles. This book I gave 4 stars. This was an interesting book. Again, I'm not really sure where I had heard about this to purchase it, but it's a bunch of students in Oxford. There was a murder. Someone is sending notes to the students that were involved with it. And so they're revisiting it, trying, or at least one of the people is revisiting it and trying to solve what happened. I really liked this book. It had a lot of murder mystery pieces I like. There was a lot of romance in it also that I wasn't expecting. So a lot of the characters being involved with each other. But overall, I really liked this book. Next up, I have Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. This book I also gave 4 stars. I ended up really liking this. I wasn't sure that I would. It's a book of the month pick, which was really nice to get through, but it's also the first book in a series, and I have not been having great luck with that recently. So I was really concerned that I wouldn't end up liking this. It follows a lot of different perspectives, which also felt a little overwhelming at times. So there's 6 different students at Blackwood Academy that are competing in a competition, and it switches often between their different perspectives. So sometimes, there's a lot of fast-paced tension, and then it'll cut over to another character. Overall, that was fine, but it is probably something that dropped it down from potentially being a 5-star pick versus focusing on a couple more characters. Out of the 6, there's definitely a few that could have been more of a main lead with the other student from that pairing being involved in the chapter, but not necessarily their entire perspective. But again, I did really like this book, and it is one where I do want to read the next book in the series to find out what happens next in it. Next up, I have Evocation by S.T. Gibson. I was excited to read this book because I really enjoyed A Dowry of Blood, but this one I only gave 3 stars. It was okay. The characters in it got a little annoying at times. Parts of the story just dragged. There's a romance between multiple characters, and in a way it was nice to see some different representation of different types of affection that people might have for each other. But it dragged out at times, and this is another one where, again, it's part of a series, but I don't have any interest in continuing this series. So it was fine. I wish it was more of a standalone, that everything wrapped up, just because I'm not interested in continuing with this. Next, I have Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. This one I also gave 3 stars, and it was okay. With this book, you've got three siblings, their father passes away, and they have some supernatural talents. We're looking to see who is going to take over their father's business. There were parts of it that were really interesting, and I liked some of the family dynamics between the siblings and just how absurd some of it got. But other parts really, again, dragged. It was an okay read, which is why it's a 3-star. It's nothing that's really going to stick with me. I will give this author another shot. I have at least one more book by them on my shelves. I've heard really good things about their writing, so maybe this just wasn't the best book to start with. I had seen mixed reviews about it before, but I'm glad that I finally read it. This was one of the books, as well as a couple others, that I wanted to read by the end of the year, in part because I had 2 editions of it. And I really didn't want to be keeping 2, let alone any, if they weren't a book that I absolutely loved for some reason. So, again, 3 stars. It was fine. Next up, I have Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. This book I gave 4 stars. This was fun. Spooky vibes for a haunted house that was in the family. One of the characters wanting to fix it up. I've read a few books that had that kind of feeling and general plot line to it, and I enjoyed it. It was definitely fun. I think it was well written. The pacing was good. There were moments that got really absurd, but I also kind of enjoy that with a paranormal type of book. You know, you don't expect it to be super realistic. Some of the characters not quite so likable, but not in an overly annoying way. You could see why they were behaving that way, and some of what was in their upbringing and how it led to that. So overall, really liked it. A good book of the month pick versus some of my other ones this year. And so, yeah, 4 stars. Next, I have a Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This book I gave 4 stars to. I enjoyed this fantasy book a lot. So there's a shield maiden who finds out her powers and that she has been blessed by at least one god with a drop of the blood. And it's an interesting story going through some different battles. There was a lot of high-speed tension, bit of a romance in it. And I liked it. Some of the romance part was a little cringy. I think I've realized that while I don't mind reading spicy scenes, it's not like things have to be closed-doored. There's certain language that just gives me the ick a little bit. And there were some moments of that in this book, but thankfully there wasn't too much of that. A lot more of the other parts that I found interesting to balance it out. So not only am I interested in this, but we'll see later, I was interested enough to read the second book in the series. Next up, I have The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. This book was another miss. It was a 3-star for me. I really wanted to like this book. I spent quite a while reading it. It was a chunky book. It's also a really pretty edition, and another book that I had 2 editions of. Romantic fantasy story. There was, going into a fae world, a lot of things that I like. It just didn't really hit. Some of the romance in it felt very insta-love, and I'm not super into that. Again, some cringy pieces for the spicier scenes. And it's another book that I'm just not that interested in continuing on in the series, even though it did end in a bit of a cliffhanger. But fine read. Wish it had just been a one-off book, tighten up some things a bit more, but it was okay. Continuing on with it was just okay, we have The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. This one I also gave 3 stars. I was hoping to like it. It's one of the Evernight exclusive books, and I haven't read a lot of those yet. There's a group of friends who are investigating a mysterious staircase and linking back to a friend who had gone missing in the past. Again, it kind of dragged at different parts. I wasn't super interested in it. I didn't like some of the characters. It was just an okay read. I'm glad that it at least wasn't part of a series, so I do have a conclusion to it, but it was just all right. Another one is A Winter in New York by Josie Silver. This one is a Book of the Month book that I've had for a while. It is another 3-star. I think in general, romance books tend to be more in a 3-star kind of range. There's not usually something that striking about them, or at least it's very rare for me. So with this, we've got a chef who is in New York City, meeting up with someone from her past unexpectedly through her mom, who's also working in New York City. There's a lot of miscommunication with this. It sort of starts with a meeting that's based off of a little bit of a lie, but it's kind of a funny one, and you could see why the character did that. But it takes forever to get some kind of resolution to that. And then when it does resolve, all of that miscommunication just seems like it is forgiven so quickly from someone who seems very straight-laced and does not appreciate lying at all. So kind of weird how it wrapped up. Again, kind of a cozy romance, not going to stick with me, but it was a fine read. Next up was A Curse Carved in Bone, which was the second book for the Fate Inked in Blood series. So I think it was the Saga of the Unfated by Daniel L. Jensen. This one I checked out from the library, read it on my Kindle. I was really excited to see how that story ended. This one I gave a 3-star though. So I liked the first book a lot more. I feel like with the second book, they tried to bump up the romance part. There was a lot more with that. And so it just brought out the parts of the writing that I didn't really enjoy. In one romance scene, the word feral was used 3 times to describe different parts. So like her feral smile and everything. And it just felt very repetitive and a little cheesy for that writing. So I'm glad that I finished out that story, that series, that it's not another series that I am just stuck in the middle of or DNFing. But it definitely was not as good as the first book. I thought at first that I would want to purchase the second book in the series to have that full set, but I don't really think so at this point because it was just fine. Next, we have The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This one was finally a really good book, and I gave it a 5-star. I like this kind of story. You've got a fantasy librarian and talking plants and a world where you have all sorts of different characters. It was cozy. It was great. There were some aspects of love, but it didn't feel too cheesy or contrived. I'm also glad that I liked it because, again, the edition is really pretty. I already have the second book in the series, but I also like that the series sounds like it's focusing on different characters, and so you've got these standalones, but dealing with people within the same world, or at least during different times of that same world. So I really enjoyed this. It's a book that I kept putting off because I was worried that I wouldn't like it and that it wouldn't live up to the hype, but I'm so glad that I read this. Next up, I have a very bookish murder. So it is an Allie McKinley mystery book. It's the third book in the series, and I gave this one 4 stars. This was a Kindle Unlimited book. This is the sort of book that just hits all of the right things for me. It's kind of like the Miss Fisher books, where they're not necessarily the most amazingly well-written books. The mysteries aren't super complex, but there's something about the character in that series that I just really love, and it makes me happy. And that's the case with this. So Dee McDonald does a really great job with this series. It's cozy mystery. It's set in Scotland. Even when some of the parts I feel like get a little repetitive, like describing the characters' clothing, their clothing choices are brought up often. It's still, overall, I really like these. And I hope that she continues putting out more books as a nice little palate cleanser to read. And the final book for the month of November was Strange Pictures by Yuketsu. This one I also gave 5 stars. So happy to end the month on a high note after a series of a bunch of just 3-star mid books. This book has a really fun horror mystery element to it. There are pictures that relate to a series of short stories, and then you can see how the characters in those different stories relate to each other. So I don't want to give away too much because I think the enjoyment comes for making those connections, but I really enjoyed this book. I have another book from this author that I can't wait to get to, and I hope that it is even better than this one. So those are my 13 books that I read in the month of November. Again, trying to get through some different reading goals that I had for the year. I started out the year in a bit of a slump. There were several months where I only read 1 or 2 books. So I'm happy to be getting back into reading and the passion and enjoyment of it. And even with the dud books, at least it is something that I've read and I can move off of my shelves or decide where I want to go next with it all. So thank you for joining me, and check back later for my next reading wrap up.